Sup guys, Fat Archon here, bringing another 40k review. Today we're going over the most heretical and fervent of all the Chaos Space Marines, the Word Bearers, aka Pactbound Zealots. So we're doing a full-on detachment review that covers all the special rules, their enhancements, their stratagems, some of the best units, and at the end of this I got a few different lists I want to show you guys. I try to make a variety so I can show some of the different playstyles. As usual, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. At the very least, if you guys could give the video a thumbs up, it really does help the channel. You know, obviously it helps the metrics, but also helps like the algorithm like pick up the videos, so I really would appreciate it if you guys could hit that icon. So we have just blown past 3,000 subscribers, which blows my mind because literally I think, what, 2 days ago I was talking about, ooh, we're almost up to 3K, and now we're like, yeah, dude, we're just cruising right on by it. So sincerely, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, anybody watching this right now, even if you're not a subscriber, thank you guys so much. Obviously, I couldn't do it without you. You guys have all been like so like supportive and kind the entire way through. So for real, I appreciate every single one of you. And again, even if you're not a subscriber, you just watching like helps in its own little way. So you guys rock. One other thing, so I'm a nerd. I don't know if you knew that about me. I made a diorama, so it's kind of pertinent too. It has Chaos vs. Astra Militarum. Now, I will say for the Astra Militarum, I did give them pretty good, pretty okay positioning. They're, you know, they're flanking. They definitely got some big ass vehicles. I gave them what? I gave them a Rogel Dorn tank as well. So you know, it's not gonna be a cakewalk for the demons, but for sure, I might have tipped the scales a little bit, so to say. But regardless. Though, so word bearers. Why are these guys so awesome? Why do I love the word bearers so much? Well, there's plenty of reasons for that. First of all, I wouldn't say they are like the favorite legion of mine. Like for sure, I got a bunch of contenders. Iron Words, very up there. Red Corsairs, I'd like them for a good while. Ooh, I know. Okay, if I was gonna say which one was my favorite, I would probably say Creations of Bile. And I was actually pretty sad when they weren't in the codex. I was like really hoping. That said, they were like brokenly good, at least back in, what was it, 8th, maybe 9th edition. I'm getting old, so I like forget the time, but back when they were at their peak, dude, that was the most busted army I have ever ran. I remember going to tournaments, I'd feel so bad for like melee players, like orc players especially. Oh man, I feel so bad, because I remember, especially if they weren't like familiar with them yet, because they would like charge my unit, like I'd tell them what was going to happen before, you know, I fight on death automatically. They'd charge me, and I'd every time I'm like, ooh, you probably shouldn't do that, but we're not talking about them. Hopefully, eventually, I can talk about Creations of Bile, but word bearers. So why are they awesome? Well, first of all, these guys have like the like deepest and most storied like lore behind them, at least for the Chaos Legions. They are like a huge part of the Horus Heresy, especially like Lorgar. He is my favorite Primarch of all the Primarchs I love the most. Definitely Lorgar. That guy's awesome. Well, he's awesome and he sucks. That's what I love about him. You know, I feel really bad for him. He got screwed over by the Emperor. Emperor definitely deserves like pay for what he did to all the Primarchs. But by the same token, like Lorgar is kind of a dick, and I know I'd hate him in real life. Speaking of people I'd hate in real life, if you love punchable faces, you should look up Erebus. If you don't know anything about Erebus, like, yeah, you can pause the video, go read a wiki, or, like, watch a lore video on him and come right back. That guy is, like, the worst. He is, like, he's, like, the worst person in 40k, like, hands down. Man, I love his story. What was it? He started out as like a nobody. He was like a poor nobody on some random planet that nobody really cared about. It might have been the same planet. Well, it was the same planet as Lorgar. But anyways, on some random like backwater town or whatever. He ended up murdering a freaking missionary, stole his identity. If I'm not mistaken, he didn't care about like the religious text like at all. He just pretended he did. And it was all just so he could get like money and fame and power. And then he is like the reason that the Horus Heresy kicked off. He like corrupted Lorgar. He screwed over like everybody. I think he screwed over like Angron. Yeah, dude. Yeah, Erebus. If you haven't looked him up, like definitely, he's like mandatory reading. You must read about that guy if you're interested in any of that sort of stuff. Regardless, though, so with that all out of the way, word bearers. Aside from their lore, why do I think they're so awesome? Well, first of all, they have what's debatably like the most powerful detachment rule. For sure, the freaking Renegade Raiders, Soulforge War Pact, and probably Veterans of the Long War, I would argue that they definitely give these guys a run for their money, but very much you could debate that these guys have the strongest rule. What's cool about it, too, is it's from the Index. It's essentially the Index rule. It did have some tweaks, and actually a really big change involved with it, too. But it is like, you know, most people will be familiar with it, at least you've been playing the Index version. But what's cool about that means that, like, any of your previous lists, so if you had a list from before that, like, you were rocking tournaments with or whatever, like, you can keep using it, technically. Again, there are some, like, small changes, especially with, like, the data sheets. Speaking of the data sheets, and this kind of affects word bearers as well, like sort of, I guess you could say it's a downside, sorta. I don't know if most people notice, but most of the changes to the data sheets to the units, most of them were nerfs. Not and there was no like giant nerfs. Most of them were either side grades or yeah, like straight up nerfs. A cursed cultist, they definitely got a side grade. I definitely like the scouts move for sure, and the berserker move is pretty awesome. But so was regening models. So was well, I guess the 2 objective control that got changed in the index or whatever. But that changed. Abaddon, he's not buffing up cultists like he was before. He doesn't have all the marks of chaos, which definitely would have played off with this detachment. So for sure, if you have like old lists you're running, you might want to take another look at it, maybe tweak a few things. But regardless, yeah, any of and what plays into that too, any of the old like guides and tactics videos, maybe check out my backlog. Any of that stuff, like for the most part, still applies to these guys. So again, if you guys were familiar with the index, well, yeah, dude, getting familiar with these guys is gonna be ultra simple. Probably my favorite part about this Legion, though, is that their rule, like, it's like universally beneficial. So just like the Renegade Raiders, units that might be subpar, like right below usable or whatever, they all get brought up a notch or two. Where that is like especially helpful is for you casual players out there. I think it's fantastic because a lot of times, man, you just want to run like a fun list, something that like looks cool. So you want to be an awesome guy and run like 3 Lord Discordance or whatever. A lot of times you're handicapping yourself. Well, you're still probably handicapping yourself, but not as much by running these guys. Because yes, the detachment rule, it helps everybody and it's super straightforward. All you guys do more damage, like easy peasy right there. So I do like that a lot. One thing I will say, though, is that, a new codex just arrived, so a lot of people, we like to try, like, new things. We don't want to just keep running the same list that we were before. So if you've been running, like, CSM for the last, like, 10 months, a year, however long 10th edition's been around, you might not be as interested in these guys as you would otherwise be. I also think, too, for, like, tournament play, even though I do believe they are, like, incredibly solid, and again, potentially are the strongest detachment, at least in CSM, I don't think you'll be seeing them as much as you would, like, otherwise. Now, as time goes on and like everything settles down and people are just trying to like win majors and that sort of stuff, who knows then, maybe people will switch back to running these guys, but that is sort of a downside. If you've already been playing them for a year, like why would you keep playing the same list when you could have, the ultra flashy Renegade Raiders or the super fun and unique like Soulforged War Pack. So that is one thing sort of holding them back. And that said, if you are new to CSM, which, like, judging from some of the comments I get and some of the emails I get, there's a lot of y'all out there. Well, sweet, dude, I'm almost jealous because you guys get to, like, rediscover this Legion. And again, dude, with the awesome background, universally good rules, like, all that sort of stuff, like, yeah, you guys are in for a treat. Regardless, though, so with that all out of the way, we can jump into the actual rules. So, Detachment Rules. So these guys have Marks of Chaos, which is awesome. It's a throwback to the olden days. But anyways, when mustering your army, when you select a heretical Astartes unit to include in your army, if that unit is not an epic hero and does not already have one of the following keywords, you must select one for your unit and note it on the army roster. You can choose between Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, Slaanesh, and Undivided. Each time a unit with one of those keywords gains a weapon ability as a result of your Dark Pax ability and does not fail the resulting leadership, until the end of the phase, this unit gets one of the following abilities. So that one bit right there about not failing the leadership, that's a huge change. It used to be that like you always got it no matter what. You would just take damage. So it was awesome. You had guaranteed 5 up. Yeah, you're about to see 5 up critical hits on like everything, which was not so good. That said, I think it's completely fair, and B, it kind of streamlines everything, so I don't really mind it that much. I don't think it's that big a handicap. By the way, in case you didn't already know, even if you fail it, you still get your 6 up Dark Packs. So it's not like the end of the world if you fail your leadership, but it will, it'll bring them down like the tiniest bit. It'll bring them down like 10% or so. Now, as for the Marks of Chaos, so you got a few to choose from. So if you go Khorne, basically, you get lethal hits in melee on a 5-up. Every 5-up to hit gives you a lethal hit, which automatically wounds. If you go Tzeentch, you get the same, but it's for ranged attacks. If you go Undivided, and Undivided is like, it always does this, Undivided gives you reroll hit rolls of 1. It also gives you access to an incredibly good stratagem. One of the best stratagems in the book, honestly. Now, for for sustained hits, Nurgle gives you sustained ranged attacks, and then Slaanesh gives you sustained melee attacks. And then, like I said, Undivided lets you just reroll hit rolls of 1. Now, there are a couple restrictions. You cannot give the Khorne keyword to a Psyker, as fun as that would be, unfortunately. And then the other part is a character that's attached to the unit. They must share the same keyword, so no mixing Khorne and like Slaanesh together. They would hate that. So I probably shouldn't have to tell you like how big a deal this is, especially on units with like large volumes of attacks, and even ones with low volume. Undivided is like especially good there. We'll get into the specifics. Like when I do the unit section, the unit review section, I'll go into which mark works on each of them. But long story short, for the most part, if you have a lot of shooting, you want to do Nurgle. If you have a lot of melee, you want to do Slanesh. For the most part, you want the sustained over the lethal. There's a few reasons for that. The big one, in my opinion, you get more chances to do wounds. So, if I have 10, or excuse me, like 12 hits, I have better odds of getting, it's crazy and will never happen, but 12 wounds. If I have lethals and I have 10 attacks or whatever, the most I could possibly get is 10. So you got that part there. I will say again that Undivided works really well, and actually Undivided is like universally useful. You really got to like pick that one. How I generally do Undivided for shooting, I almost always do Nurgle. For melee, I almost always do Slanesh. But if I'm only bringing one of a certain unit, so I'm bringing only a single Forgefiend, for example, there's a pretty good likelihood I'll go Undivided. Just makes it more consistent. On top of that, when we get into the stratagems, you'll see that very much you're going to include at least one Undivided unit in pretty much every single like list you write, especially if they have like dead wounds. I'll spill the beans now. You can get reroll all wounds. So that's gigantic on anything with devastated wounds. So like Possessed are gonna love it, Forgefiends are gonna love it, Chaos Lords are gonna love it. In regards to the leadership test, so it's not that bad at all, man. If you have a leadership 6 baseline, you should pass, I believe it's a little over 70%. I believe it's exactly 72% if you want to get technical. Now, if you have an Icon of Chaos, where you get to re-roll those tests, then it goes up to 90% or 92%. So it's basically guaranteed in that sense. So definitely, Icons are going to have, like, extra value in this detachment. So, like, Chosen, Legionaries, like, Possessed get it. That's pretty awesome. Bikers get it. All those units that have access to it definitely going to pop a little bit more. For some silly reason, Terminators don't, but luckily they already re-roll their hits, so that sort of makes up for it there. I should mention that as well. Anything that gives you any sort of re-rolls, especially hits, oh my god, is it Value City, man. 5-up exploding hits with all the rerolls, like that's over 100% conversion rate. Even baseline, even without rerolls, a 5-up crit sustained hit, that is the equivalent to 100% conversion rate. So 100% of your, so if you have 6 attacks on your profile, you should expect 6 hits. It's pretty goddamn nutso right there. And again, plays into these guys being one of the best attachments, definitely one of like the most damaging armies in the game. One other change from the index, and this is like a pretty helpful change. So it used to be that you couldn't put mixed marks into a transport. So you couldn't have a transport that was like Nurgle and put a Slanesh unit in it. They both had to be Nurgle, for example. Well, currently, as of this moment, that's not in the book. So I'm sure it's going to change, but go on ahead and take advantage of it now while you can, especially if you're playing like a big tournament or something. A Nurgle Rhino is like bomb, dude. Yeah, Nurgle transports are fantastic. When we get to the stratagems, you guys will see why. So obviously we're already started off with a banger here, man. I can't tell you guys like how big a deal 5-up sustain and even 5-up lethals is. 5-up lethals totally valid too. If you have a boatload, so for like Zinch for example, if you have a boatload of like AP 0, strength 4, so like Balters, Bikers are like a perfect example. If you have a boatload of that going out, yeah man, Zinch is valid there. You can just do the lethal 5-ups. You can plink some wounds even off a freaking like Imperial Knight. For Khorne, there are a few units. Again, when I get into unit profiles, we'll jump into that more. But there are a few units. Cultists would be like an okay choice. You're almost always going to run them as Nurgle, but maybe you bring in like a bunch of Cultists. In that case, yes, I would consider like Khorne there. But for the most part, like I said, it'll be Nurgle, Slanesh, and Undivided. Those are the 3 you're going to see like 95, 99, 100% of the time. So just be aware. But again, so banger detachment rule. What about the enhancements? So the enhancements, they're not bad or anything, but they're nothing great. They have one like pretty good one, and then the rest of them are just like average, if you were to ask me. So first up, we got Talisman of Burning Blood. So this is Khorne model only. Add 1 to the attacks and strength characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons. Then, each time the bearer makes a Dark Pact and does not fail the resulting leadership test, roll a d3. Until the end of the phase, add the result to your attacks and strength characteristic instead. So, where that's kind of cool, man, you got the obvious bits, so like Daemon Prince would like that a lot. You run a Khorne Daemon Prince, he's already strength 10. With this relic alone, he goes up to strength 11 with, I believe, 7 attacks. Maybe you roll hot, you get a 3, bada bing, bada boom, man. 9 attacks, strength 13. I'm taking out Land Raiders and stuff. Lord Discordant, surprisingly, gets decent value out of that too. Now, he does have the extra attacks profile, and you can't modify the number of attacks for an extra attack profile, but you can affect the strength. If you roll the average, so 2 up, well, it's a D3, but if you get a 2 or higher, suddenly he'll be wounding on 2s with his bladed limbs, so definitely some value there. And then where I think he's best is Master Executions. Wherever I put that guy, Master Executions is gonna be probably the best one because he's Strength 7 baseline. So even if you didn't roll a die, even if you didn't take a Dark Pact, now you're wounded Marines on 2. So I do think that's the guy you'll put him on most often. I should mention all 4 of these relics cost 15 points, so it's pretty easy to remember there. I do like that part. And that's a fair price for all these. None of them are like overcosted in my opinion. Next up, though, so we got Eye of Tzeentch. So, obviously, Tzeentch only. You good guess there. So, Heretic Astartes, Tzeentch model only. Each time the bearer's unit makes a Dark Pact and does not fail the resulting leadership test, if the result of that test was 8 or more, you gain 1 command point. So this one kind of sucks. An 8-up, if I'm not mistaken, it's like a 40% chance. So you have less than 50-50 that you're going to gain your CP. Now, I will say, though, you got to think, so it's any time you do a Dark Pact. So if you shoot and then get into melee, you get 2 chances on your turn, and then on your opponent's turn, if you get into melee, or if you're fighting a melee there, you get another chance. So you do actually have like okay odds of regenning if you're doing it that often. That said, a character running Tzeentch, or not even a character running Tzeentch, because I could see like solo characters, and for sure that's how most people do it. So like a Terminator Sorcerer, that's a fairly common one. I'd be tempted to give him Slanesh, you'll find out in a second, but that's one option. And if you got I don't know, a Measly Lord or something, maybe a Cultist Firebrand sit in the back, yes, I could see like Tzeentch in that case. But to run an entire unit as Tzeentch, that's pretty rare, especially the ones that you can attach characters to. So I'm kind of on the fence with this one. Command point regen is like incredibly valuable, especially for Chaos Space Marines. Of all the armies that I can think of off the top of my head, Chaos Space Marines are like one of the hungriest for CP. So there is some value there. But beyond that, 40% odds. You got to be able to do a Dark Pact. Like, I'm not sold on it yet. Next up, though, so we got Nurgle. So we got Orbs of Unlife. Heretic Astartes, Nurgle model only. At the end of the fight phase, roll 1d6 for every enemy unit within 3 inches of the bearer. Add 1 to the result if the bearer's unit made a Dark Pact and did not fail the resulting leadership test. On a 4-up, that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Okay, so this one is terrible. Yeah, this is like one of the worst ones. This is one of my least favorite like enhancements in the entire book, if I'm being upfront with you. First of all, it's only 3-inch range. Second of all, it's from the freaking bearer. I hate that. Third of all, you still got to roll a 4-up, and maybe a 3-up if you did a Dark Pact. But yeah, it's like not guaranteed. There's so many hoops you got to jump through. You'd be lucky to affect 1, maybe 2 units. And again, you only got a 50-50 or like a 66% chance to even do it. And then maybe you just roll a 1. So it's like terrible on top of terrible on top of terrible. That's one of the worst. Unless you're doing like a fluffy, fun, Nurgle themed list or whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna pass that pretty much every single time. Alright, next up, though, we got the best one. This is the one you're going to see all the time. So, Intoxicating Elixir. Heretic Astartes, Slanesh model only. The bearer has the Feel No Pain 5-up ability. And, each time the bearer shoots or fights, if the bearer made a Dark Pact and did not fail the resulting leadership test, after they have resolved all their attacks, select one enemy unit hit by 1 or more of those attacks, and they must take a Battle Shock test. So, obviously, that 5-up Feel No Pain, man, that's pretty baller right there. If you guys didn't already know, a 5-up Feel No Pain is tantamount to a 50% freaking wound buff. So, you put on something meaty, a Daemon Prince, he goes up to, what, I think he has 9 or 10, yeah, I think he has 10 wounds. You go up to 15 wound equivalent. Lord Discordant goes up to 15, like, very much he could get used to that. If you're rolling hot, suddenly they become, like, hard to kill. The Battle Shock theme, that's like sneaky good too, because it says each phase. So if you have a range profile, you'll be forcing 2 Battle Shock tests on a unit, so like, double your odds on it. So I do like that there. Again, that's like sneaky good. For only 15 points, that's pretty much an auto-include if you're bringing a Slanesh model. Now, obviously, not every unit can make the most of it. The more wounds they have on their profile, like, the better it is. So something that only has, like a Master Possession, no, dude, I don't think I'd put on him. But, like, a Terminator Lord, yeah, I could see that. And definitely a Terminator Sorcerer Lord. I think that's fantastic there. Because what, dude, you got a 2-up save, 4-up invul, you can blank a wound once per game, and then you get the 5-up Feel No Pain on top of it. He also has the range profile and the melee, so yeah, lots of value there, and he's like ultra like valuable to every single army. If you didn't already know, Terminator Sorcerer, he's pretty fantastic. So overall, they're okay relics. The Intoxicating Elixir, pretty baller. The Orbs on Life, trash. And then the other 2, you, they're okay. If you have points left over at the end of your list, like, sure, man, you can toss in some of them. I do, like, run the Tzeentch one, the Eye of Tzeentch. I do run that from time to time. And like I said, I love to run on a solo character. I think it's fine there. Maybe I'm, like, missing something, and there's, like, a decent squad that you could throw it in where they all run Tzeentch, and it's okay. I could see Chosen. Well, yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. So there are some options there. But again, overall, not the best enhancements, not the worst. They're just, like, they're just, like, okay. How about the stratagems, though? So, just like almost every legion, almost every army, that's where these guys pop. They have some exceptionally good stratagems, some of the best in the CSM book, if you were to ask me. So, first of all, we got it. Okay, so this one's really fun. I don't think it's like that good, but I love this one a lot. So, Eye of the Gods. In the fight phase, just after a Heretical Astartes character unit from your army, excluding Damned, Demon, and Epic Heroes, destroys an enemy unit. That character adds 1 to their Move, Toughness, and Wounds characteristic, and you add 1 to the attacks, strength, and damage of their melee weapons. So that's pretty awesome. Now, it does have the stinker if it doesn't work on demon units, which actually really sucks, so I would love to buff up my Lord Discord. Like, you guys knew that was coming. But even Master Possession, Demon Prince would definitely love that. Like, all of them would love it. That said, I can see why they didn't, like, from a fluff perspective, because essentially they're trying to, like, show off to the dark gods and become a demon prince of themselves. So I kind of get where it's coming from, but still, I think it's kind of a stinker. That said, though, on like a Lord, for example, they already have their own. It is once per game, but they can already give themselves +1 strength, attacks, AP, and damage. You toss Eye of the Gods on there, where that gets really memey is if you happen to do it like multiple times. As rare as that would be, you'd have to be like slicing characters left and right. But there are SKU. I have definitely seen SKU lists out there that have like 6 different characters. Gene Stealer cults, like that's pretty common. So like, there's okay odds of getting it. I'm not sure if it's the most competitive thing ever, but on something like a Chaos Lord or a Master Execution, he would love that very much too. I could see it having like pretty good value on them. Next up though, so we got Skin Shift. So in your command phase, 1 Heretical Astartes unit from your army, basically they regain up to 3 wounds, and in addition, if they were a Tzeentch unit and they are below certain strength, 1 destroyed model, excluding characters, is returned to that unit with full wounds remaining. So I think the main benefit of that is just the first part, the gaining 3 wounds. Vehicles are gonna love it. Maybe you got, even if they were just plinked down, you can like, refresh them or whatever, so you got value there. Maybe they're below half strength, so they're having to take Battle Shock tests. I don't like doing that, so maybe you could fix that up. Or maybe they're like really low, obviously heal them so they might not die, but they also don't have the -1 to hit associated with that, so I do think there's definitely value there. For the second part, bringing back a model, like, yes, that does have value. Terminators are going to love it. Who's especially going to love it, though? Obliterators. Now, it is questionable if you want to give Obliterators Tzeentch. Like, do they really need lethal hits with their strength, like, 14 or whatever it is, Melta attacks? Like, not so sold. But you can still, by the way, I should have mentioned this when I first did the Marks of Chaos, you can still choose sustained hits, even if there's Tzeentch or whatever. You're not stuck in the lethals. You can choose either or. So you could still, if you needed to, get the sustained and then stick with the lethals, like if you're in Imperial Knight or, whatever the reason would be. But these guys are, 85 points each? A single command point for 85 points? Like, that's a fair trade to me. So definitely some value there. But again, I think it's most important with just healing your dudes, whether it's a Demon Prince, a Vindicator, or whatever. Alright, next up we got Eternal Hate. So, fight phase only, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets but before they attack. 1 Heretical Astartes unit from your army that was selected as a target. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit is destroyed, if that model has not fought this phase, roll a d6, adding 1 to the result if your unit is a core unit. On a 4-up, do not remove it from the game. That model gets to attack before it's removed from the table. So actually, I like that one a lot, and it is one I've used a lot during the Index era. Even without Khorne units, you don't have to be Khorne. Like, yeah, that helps. 66% of your models get to fight on death, but even the 50-50 is pretty valuable. Now, it's not like the strongest stratagem ever. 50-50 is not reliable in the least bit, but where it really works is if you have bricks of something. So bricks of Warp Talons are going to love the shit out of that. Possessed are who I usually would use it on, and for sure, I've had it been like a game winner. Yeah, I remember once, man, I had, Blade Guard Veteran, maybe it was like Blood Angels with their heavy hitters. They came in, basically obliterated my freaking Possessed. Well, I rolled hot. I think I got like 6, maybe 7 of them, like, got to fight on death, and I wiped out their squad in return. It was beautiful on their turn, even. So I definitely think there's value there. Fight on death, I talked about Creations of Bile earlier. It's one of, like, the strongest, like, abilities in the game. Luckily, GW learned their lesson from 8th or 9th, whenever they first brought it around. Luckily, they learned their lesson. Don't make it automatic. That's, like, ridiculously strong. There are some armies, like, Orcs still have it. I think Blood Angels Angels still have it. A few armies do still have it, and it's strong when it shows up there. It's strong when it shows up here, even on a 4-up. Alright, next up we've got Torpifying Refrain. So in your movement phase, one heretical Astartes unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, your unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back. Also, if that unit has the Mark of Slaanesh, until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot and charge in a turn in which it advanced. So that's the, that's the money shot right there. That's the big one. Advance and charge is huge everywhere you see it. It is giant. That's where you plan your first turn around it. Obviously, it still has value beyond that. Turn 2, turn 3, I'm just a couple inches away. Well, if I advance, I can get like a near guaranteed charge. Bada bing, bada boom. Not an issue at all. Melee units are almost always going to be Slaanesh, and that's why. That right there is like the reason why. So Warp Talons, you're going to always do that. Possessed, we'll get in them in a minute. Like, you won't always use it with them, but I do like, if I do MSU Possessed, I definitely like use that a lot if I need it. So again, Advance and Charge, big everywhere. Even the Fall Back and Charge, like that still has value too. You can get around screens. If you have jump packs, you can get over the screens. Again, all sorts of like uses for that. I very much love Advance and Charge. Alright, next up we've got Profane Zeal. Now this is the banger. So, in your shooting or your fight phase, one Heretical Astartes Chaos Undivided unit that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, each time you make an attack, you can reroll the wound roll. So that is gigantic. That is so much damage on certain units. Anything with devastating wounds is gonna love it. Possessed though. So I'm gonna, Possessed. Super duper ultra gonna love it. Reason being, unfortunately it's once per game now, but they get devastating wounds on their attack. You toss on the 5-up exploding hits on top of that, on average, a Brick of Possessed, on average, I believe it's 22 damage, unsavable damage, to literally any model in the game. It could be a Toughness 69, freaking War Titan or whatever. You are still taking 22 damage on average. You roll a little hot, it gets a little wild. You roll a little under, it doesn't matter. You're still doing like 16 to 18 damage. That is one of the most powerful, one of the most powerful bricks in the game. For 250 points, 30 freaking wounds, T6, we'll get into them in a little bit, but yeah, dude, Possessed bricks, like, they're pretty baller. Forgefiends love it as well. Forgefiends also have devastating wounds, and theirs is not locked to once per game, so you can do it every single turn if you want to. So obviously that's giant. Even if you don't have dev wounds, like, obviously that's going to come up there. Maybe it's like a vital, unit that you need to wipe out. Maybe they're on like their last leg, but you're not sure you'll be able to do it. Fuck yeah, dude, I'm gonna, I'm gonna reroll all my wounds. I don't care if like most of my unit's gone or whatever. Yeah, that is very much like a keystone stratagem, and once you build around. And I'm just realizing, so I bitched about how there's only one battle tactic. Well, that's the freaking battle tactic. So I take back what I was saying about lords. Now I feel kind of stupid, because yes, dude, you would want to use that twice a turn if you're able to. Damn, yeah, now I do feel silly. Undivided, like Chosen, like, and Legionaries for that matter, very much. Those are going to be something you're probably going to want to consider. Alright, last up, this one also is like a banger. So, Pedestrian Miasma. In your opponent's shooting phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, one Heretical Astartes unit that was selected as the target of those attacks. Until the end of the phase, your unit has the Stealth ability. In addition, if you have the Mark of Nurgle, you cannot be targeted outside of 18 inches. So obviously that is gigantic. Now 18 inches, that is gigantic as well. 18 inches, pretty long, man. So it's not that hard to get into range, but first turn, that is such a key strategy. Cultists are going to love it the most, man. This stratagem alone is why you pretty much always run Cultists as, like, Nurgle. At least one squad is Nurgle. Reason being, you put them on your home field objective, and they are literally invulnerable to, like, indirect. They're invulnerable to pretty much anything, unless they have, like, a turn 1 deep strike or something. They cannot be shot. It is huge. It's a game saver. Because, yeah, losing your, like, super cheap chaff squad that's going to sit on the home objective all game, now you got to leave, like, a valuable unit. Maybe you didn't have, like, a backup squad or whatever. Super duper ultra valuable there. On top of that, transports are going to love it. The fact that we can put mixed mark units into the transport, like, that's huge because we have access to this. Again, you're pretty much going to run every single transport as Nurgle, like, no questions asked, specifically because of the stratagem. I play a lot of Chaos Demons, and obviously, like, Be'lakor is really popular there. I can tell you for a fact that, like, that is ultra valuable. The 18-inch range, especially for first turn. After first turn, it will still come up. Because a lot of times, man, just like here, the army's all spread out or whatever. So they got tank on one side, tank over here. They're not going to be able, most likely, they shouldn't be able to shoot you with both tanks. In fact, let's see. Oh, it's not showing the measure, but I bet you that's outside of 18 inches right there. So even after first turn, yeah, it does still have value. Just be aware that if somebody wants to shoot you, like, they should be able to, if they put in the effort. So overall, these are some pretty baller stratagems, man. Were any even a stinker? Like, no, I don't think so. The regen in 3 wounds, I actually like really like skin shift. In 8th edition, I used to use Iron Warriors had like the same stratagem basically, and I'd use that all the time, man, because they were like hard to like hurt. You'd hurt me, you know, you'd spend like an entire turn shooting. You'd take my guy down half. I'm like, well, I'm gonna fix like half the damage you done. It's just gonna go away. So that's not bad. Obviously, the reroll all wounds with Undivided, like that's huge. I think Fight on Death is gigantic when it comes up and, when you get lucky with the dice rolls. Because for sure, there will be times when you, like, roll just 1 or 2 dice, and that's probably going to suck. You're going to basically lose a CP there. So again, overall, some pretty fantastic stratagems. Definitely one of the reasons that Word Bearers are, like, were so great, even in the Index, and why they're going to continue to be so great. Alright, next up, though, so we got the top units. So, as usual, gotta do the disclaimer here. I didn't include any and every single unit that's, like, best in this attachment. I tried to pick the ones that, yes, do like extra pop, and then the ones that become like viable, even though they wouldn't normally be. Obliterators are a perfect example of that. Well, obviously we'll get to them in a moment. Ooh, how did that get there? Anyway, so first of all, you got Abaddon, dude. This guy's like the classic pick, and it should be pretty obvious why he's so good. Like I said in the beginning, anything that gives you reroll to hits especially is, it's money, dude. It's money, money, money. The 5-up, you got 5-up criticals with all the rerolls. You're getting over 100% conversion rate. I don't know, I'm terrible at math, but I'd assume it's like 120%. So if you have 6 attacks, you should average like 7 or 8. It's pretty wild there. On top of that, he himself is a beat stick. He went down in price, luckily, too. Now, he did get nerfed. He doesn't have all the, this card I have is old, so he doesn't have all the Marks of Chaos. Now he's only Undivided. Well, guess what? Undivided is like one of the best choices, especially for a unit like this, so not that big a deal. On top of that, he's got Dark Destiny, so each time this model makes a Dark Pact, if you pass the test on a 7-up, you gain a command point. So 7-up, I believe that's 50-50, maybe a little over 50-50, but either way, yeah, dude, that adds up. Maybe got somebody else with Eye of Tzeentch in your list as well. So, CP's like rolling in, So, again, value there. And then, like I mentioned, he himself is a beat stick. So, 8 attacks, hitting on 2s, reroll everything, most likely. Strength 14, AP 4, 3 damage each with devastating wounds. Again, he's Undivided, so you can reroll all your wounds. He also has a Mark of Chaos Ascendant, so friendly infantry and mounted, so Lord Discordant, within 6 inches, they can get a 4-up invul as well. So maybe, maybe you've already, like, half-tabled your opponent, or maybe you're, like, really worried about getting shot. First turn especially. Like, you have, like, a melee-focused army, you're not going to get into combat first turn, or at least don't plan for it. Yeah, dude, just use the 4-up invul. So, very much Abaddon, of all the legions that this guy shines in, this is the legion. If you're a big, like, Abaddon, like, super fan or whatever, this is the legion you put him into. I can't tell you, like, the amount of damage he can do. An Abaddon Castle, as they call it, was the most popular list. And I'll be honest with you, so everybody has their own playstyle, their own choices. I've never been a big Abaddon fan. I love him. I love the lore, and I love his model. He's a great centerpiece or whatever. But I just find the list, like, kind of boring. And honestly, the only reason I do it, it was such a good list that everybody ran it, and I'm like a snowflake or whatever. I love to be unique, so that was, like, the reason I wasn't big into it. So, don't worry about what I say, but regardless, Abaddon, he's crazy good. You don't have to bring him, but he's crazy good. Next up, Daemon Princes. So we got both here. I would think the winged version has like extra value on it. Big reason being the Slanesh Relic. Getting a 5-up Feel No Pain on top of your 2-up save, T9, 10 wound profile with a 4-up invul. Like, that's pretty money there. This guy will take like super dedicated firepower to actually deal with. On top of that, the winged version especially has really good abilities. So, Demonic Destruction. Each time this model ends a charge move, select one enemy unit within engagement range and roll a d6 for each of your remaining wounds. For each 4-up, do 1 mortal wound to a maximum of 6. When you got a 5-up Feel No Pain, that helps you keep those wounds, so that you're doing even more mortal wounds on top of that. CSM don't have that much like access at all to like mortal wounds, so again, that has lots of value there. There's sneaky little plays you can do. You can like clear out a screen and then charge a fight first unit or charge a character they're screening, something like that. So that definitely has value. Now, I will say, normally you'd want to go Khorne. If you weren't bringing a Relic, or you're bringing the Talisman instead, you'd probably want to go Khorne. If you don't bring the Talisman Relic, you would just go to Strength 10 baseline. So that's fantastic. Makes him super good at anti-elite and infantry, and makes him pretty decent at anti-like vehicle. Now, if you give him the Talisman, though, then he becomes pretty much anti-everything. Vehicles for sure, T10 vehicles for sure, and if you roll hot, even like T12 vehicles become vulnerable, so that's pretty good there. If you do say Slanesh, like, it's fine too. You get an extra 2-inch movement, so then he has a 14-inch movement. You can get Advance and Charge on top of that. He can also Deep Strike, so like, that's pretty money. Nurgle's an okay choice as well. You get +1 toughness, so the winged version go to toughness 10, the foot version go to toughness 11. Tzeentch though, Tzeentch definitely you would never pick here. Yeah, not at all. Next up though, you knew this man was coming, Lord Discordant. So he's basically just like the Daemon Prince, but, you know, he's a little worse. He's a little more spendy, 190 points. But again, dude, the Talisman of Burning Blood, I think, is actually valid on this guy. You would have to roll, well, actually, you just roll average. You get a 2 or higher on the D3. Your Bladed Limbs go to Strength 8. Well, both of your profiles go to Strength 8. So you'd be wounding infantry on 2s. The Impaler Chainglaive has a lance on top of that, so you'd be wounding, yeah, like elites on 2s as well. Now, I would recommend, me personally, I dump the Technovirus Injector every single time. It's a single 2 damage attack. Like, yeah, it has AP2 and all that. Like, that's, you know, fine. Anti-vehicle 2 up, like, okay. But, dude, it doesn't have dev wounds. Like, that's silly. It should have had at least multiple attacks or at least 3 damage. Like, why do you guys hate the Lord Discordant so much? Regardless, though, luckily you got the Magma Cutter as a backup. So you got 2 shots. It's only 6-inch range, but 2 shots, strength 9, minus 4 AP, that's money, and then D6 damage, so I definitely like that. On top of the Bale Flamer, like, that adds up. Now, unfortunately, he's not a vehicle for, again, GW hates this guy, but we don't care, right? Like, you know, we rule of cool, rule of cool overall. So he can't shoot in combat, unfortunately, but you can. Remember, you got the Strategems, so you can advance and charge if you go Slanesh, or you can, like, fall back, shoot, and then charge into him. So you definitely got, like, options there. It's not the worst thing ever, for sure. I think you get value out of here. And don't forget, Exploding 5s. So if you do Slanesh, obviously that gets you more, like, you're more of an infantry blender. And then if you go Khorne, that would make you more of an anti-everything. This guy, you know, rule of cool, and if you love, like, awesome models, by all means, man, keep tossing this guy on your list. And by the way, give me a call. We should hang out sometime. Next up, alright, Master Execution. I think you'll be seeing a lot of this guy. Because again, anything that gives you reroll hits is a huge deal. On top of that, this guy has devastating wounds and precision. If you run him undivided, and maybe your target isn't below half strength, so you don't get like the Warp-Sided Butcher reroll wounds there, you just pop the Stratagem on him. Dude, you can obliterate characters with that. And don't forget, you got the Stratagem, you could boost this guy up. You can get him up to, what, T5, 5 wounds, 3 damage each, AP3, strength 8 baseline, like, it's pretty nutso there. Like I mentioned, he would be a good choice for the Khorne Relic. That way he goes to strength 8 just like baseline, and get up to strength 10 if you roll lucky, with 8 freaking attacks at that point. Again, he'd be a little character like Assassinator. On top of that, he has Trophy Taker, so when you do kill a character, you're also gaining a CP on top of it. Very much, I think Master Executions would be a pretty common choice. Now, I should have included Lord here, but I didn't this time. You guys should know by now, like, how good Lords are. And I mentioned, too, like I recalled as we're going through it, that yes, we do have a really good battle tactic. So, Lords definitely belong in most lists. Then with Chosen, definitely something I'd consider. However, I got the fun pick for y'all, Master of Possession. So this will probably be debatable for some of you, but I generally do think this guy's still pretty alright. He was way better before. He used to have a 6-up Feel No Pain. Unfortunately, they got rid of that. That said, though, this guy is the best sniper that any Chaos faction has access to. Reason being, his shooting has Anti-Psyker 2-up, which is cool, Pistol, which is awesome, Precision. It's 18-inch range, so really good range for a pistol. 2 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 6, minus 3 AP, 3 damage each. What you do, you use the Sacrificial Dagger, so you just stab a homie. Normally you run them with the Possess, so they got 3 wounds, they don't really care. Well, suddenly, you're hitting on 2s. If it's a normal character, so toughness 5 or below, you're wounding on 2s. 3 AP, 3 damage each. I can't tell you guys the number of characters I've assassinated with this guy, especially weak little characters. So like Genestealer Cults, ooh boy, you guys better watch out. I will say too, don't forget that Anti-Psyker 2-up. I've had this guy be like my MVP versus like Chaos Demons before. I had him like obliterating like Keeper of Secrets and that sort of stuff, because Anti-Psyker 2-up, you're hitting him on 2, you're wounding him on 2s. Oh yeah, dude, yeah, no, it totally adds up there. He also has the Demonkin ability, so while he's leading a unit, you add 1 to their advance and charge rolls. It's not a giant deal, but it does add up. And again, if you mark him like Slanesh or whatever, you do have access to an advance and charge, so you get both of those together, basically plus 2 inches to your movement. Hey, that could be the deciding factor between making your charge or not. I very much like the Master Possession. Yes, he got nerfed, but he also got a buff in that his points went down. He's only 70 points, so he's actually one of the cheaper options we got. He also has a 5-up invul, only 4 wounds, unfortunately, but still, I think this guy very valid. You'll see in some of the lists I load later, yes, I definitely very highly rate the Master Possession. Alright, next up we got Havocs. So, these guys are good in every single list. Like, if you watch my other videos, you know how I feel about them. Now, Hand and Nurgle, I'm not making it up. So, first of all, I always run a Nurgle. There's a little clue there. But Hand and Nurgle, I have basically destroyed Imperial Knight with a single 120-point squad before. I think he had a few wounds off of him. I think I did like 20 damage, something ridiculous like that. And that'll happen like more often than you think. Where, yeah, dude, exploding 5s, you roll nothing but 5s. You get like 7 freaking hits. And then you're winning on 3s in a lot of cases, not versus Knight or whatever. But either way, yeah, dude, these guys super, ultra, especially pop when you run them Nurgle. Now, obviously, the las cannons are great. The other choice is the Reaper chain cannons. Again, man, with the current meta, with like orcs and like hordes, chaos cults, check out the video. All those guys starting to show up a bit more. Chain cannons definitely gain some value. 8 shots each, strength 5, it does 0 AP, but whatever. When you have that many attacks going out with exploding 5s, like, definitely adds up there. You could also, you maybe could run them as, like, Tzeentch in that case. That way they sort of become an anti-everything. Again, they have no AP, but certain armies have, like, crappy armor saves as it is. Versus them, dude, these guys are like, mwah, and they're super duper gonna pop in that case. That said, I almost always run them as las cannons, especially if I'm only bringing a single squad. If I'm bringing 2 squads, like 90% of the time I'm bringing both. Beyond that, though, they have an okay ability, the stabilization talons, so basically they ignore any modifiers for their hit rolls, so you're always hitting on 3s no matter what. Most other infantry hit on 4s with all the heavy weapons. These guys are still hitting on 3s, again with exploding 5s. Maybe got Abaddon nearby, they're rerolling all the hits. Maybe go undivided, you reroll all the wounds. You got a lot of options with the Havocs for only 120 points. Yeah, dude, I think they're steal. Ooh, alright, the one I've been waiting for all videos, so I freaking worship Possess. If you guys have watched my other videos, you know how much I love these guys. In this detachment specifically, I think they are ultra valid. A lot of people, I can see the debate on why they're not that good in other detachments, though I disagree. I think even baseline they're fine, but they only have AP 1, and it's only, you know, quote unquote, only strength 5, so into like T10 vehicles, they definitely struggle there. But when you have reroll 1s to hit and exploding 6s with sustained, and you have dev wounds on top of that, reroll all wounds, these guys do, on average, this is average, I believe they do 22 damage to any model in the game. They could be toughness 50, they'd be toughness 100, it doesn't matter, dude. You're going to do 22 damage on average. They become an anti-everything. On top of that, not only are they great into big things, these are one of the premier anti-orc units in my opinion. Because orcs have terrible armor saves, like, almost universally, and even mega knobs, well, boom, I'm just going to use dev wounds on you. These are, if you have a lot of orcs in your local meta, start bringing Possess, man. Just trust me, they really are that good. On top of that, they have an amazing profile for the cost. They're only 125 points. That is so cheap, man. For 9-inch move, toughness 6, 3 wounds each. They got a 5-up invul. They also have a chaos icon, so they're like extra guaranteed to get their dark packs off. These guys are nothing but like goodness. They're great MSU, and me, I love running them in bricks. I run them in bricks. A lot of times I'll bring a master possession along. In bricks, you don't have to. With 5-mans, I like to bring the master possession. That way, what I really like with that is you get the pistol. So suddenly, not only can you kill characters and stuff, which obviously has value, but you can also do secondaries and do like actions. I think that's like sneaky good on a 9-inch move unit. Like that's pretty damn good. Now Master Possession, he only moves 8, so that is a little odd. They kind of like clash there. But the trick with that is you put, when you deploy the unit, put the Master Possession in the front, and then just sort of leapfrog each other. It's really not that big a deal until like turn 3 or so. Yeah. In fact, yeah, you have guaranteed 2 turns of it not mattering for the most part. Master Possession gives you +1 advance and charges, so again, it adds value. So pretty much 100% of the time, if I'm running a brick, they're almost always undivided. And then if I do MSU, I like to run them Slaanesh. That way I get the advance and charges, and I get the sustained 5-up, so it just helps for like clearing out infantry. Which again, like orcs, marine profiles, anything that doesn't have like a 2-up save, like they'll do fantastic into. Don't forget, you can bring the Terminator Sorcerer as well, get it up to AP 2, like that definitely pops off. These guys are one of the premier units in this Legion. I think they're great in the entire book, but in this Legion especially, very much, man. If you guys haven't tried it yet, bring a brick of Possessed, undivided, use that dead wounds into, like, I don't know, a Chaos Knight or something, and just watch the fireworks. Yeah, very much love them. By the way, the model, like, I know these are the word bearer ones, but I love the freaking models as well. Next up, you guys knew I had to bring these guys up. So, Warp Talons. Again, I say this a lot. I say this for like every Legion, but it applies here too. They are going to especially pop off here, dude. Sustained hits 5, like you pretty much always would run them Slanesh, like why wouldn't you? You already have reroll wounds, so you don't need to go undivided. Sustained hits 5 up, with 4 attacks each, strength 5, minus 2 AP, 1 damage, again you're rerolling all the wounds, maybe you got Abaddon nearby, you're rerolling all the hits while you're at it. They have really good odds, especially if you do a brick, they have super good odds of like clearing out their target. That means you get to go back into strategic reserves and just do it all over next turn. Maybe you like rapid ingress them on your opponent's next turn. Like dude, it's nothing but goodness with these guys. At only 110 points, they're one of the very best units in the game. Now, I will be upfront with you guys. I fully expect these guys to get a points nerf, like relatively, not soon. GW likes to take their sweet time, but very much I'm expecting these guys to go to like 125 or something like that. Truthfully, even at 125, they're going to be worth it, man. Yeah, these guys are an auto-include times 1 at least, a lot of times times 3. Also, too, they work fantastic MSU or as bricks. Like, either or works fine. I do think, dude, you could toss 30 in your list and have no issue whatsoever. Warp Talons are like an auto-include. If you're starting to collect CSM and you're trying to play competitively, go out and buy some Warp Talons before they sell out. I actually, I was surprised. I went out and bought some because I was worried they're going to sell out. They haven't sold out yet, at least not that I've seen yet. But I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if like a month or so from now, yeah, they're going to be like impossible to get. They're going to be like $100 on eBay or whatever. Ooh, all right, next up, we got Obliterators. So these guys, so overall, I don't think they're the greatest thing ever. They're way too overpriced. They did get a price break, so they're only, quote-unquote, 170 points now. That's still way too much in my opinion. They got 4-inch move, toughness 7, that's pretty good. 2-up save is actually like fantastic with a 5-up invul, but only 5 wounds each, and you know, it could be better. And then what I think really holds them back is the fact that they have variable amount of attacks. So like, dude, can you imagine how bad it would be if you use your Focus Malice and you just roll 2 for your 2 shots for your 170 point unit? However, so with that all out of the way, gotta put out the disclaimer of all the legions that can make use of Obliterators. Again, this is the one. Reason being because of that 5-up sustained. So even with your variable number of attacks, there's an okay chance that you'll roll your crit hits, and suddenly you're making up for that, low number of shots that they typically get out. The Focus Malice now did go down to 18-inch range, so unfortunately you can't deep strike in and get the Melter profile. That said, the turn after, like you should be able to. They're able to get indirect once per battle. That's huge, man. When you only have a 4-inch move, like that's pretty big. Now, a long time ago, I read a really good Warhammer article on it. They had a really great suggestion of don't use that the turn that you deep strike if you're deep striking. Wait until the turn after. Because when you deep strike, like you should be able to get line of sight. There's an okay chance that you'll like obliterate whatever your target is. Well, after that, they only move 4 inches. And that's when you start using the indirect. So I think that's a smart little strategy. On top of that, they got the other profiles. So that's actually something, these are like great for newer players as well, or people with a small collection, because they're sort of anti-everything, and being expensive is sort of a perk in that sense, because that helps you get up to like 2k or 1k or, whatever size list you need to. Like, that actually helps there. Ruinous Salvo's pretty decent into like marine profiles. So Blast, we love that. 24-inch range, D6 shots each, strength 8, minus 2 AP, 2 damage each, so they'll be great at like annihilating marines. And then even the Warp Hail, like that's pretty decent. Has sustained hits 1, so in that case you would always pick the lethal hits. Even though you're Nurgle, you still pick the lethal hits. And then D6 plus 3 attacks, strength 5, minus 1 AP, 1 damage each, so I'll clear out like chaff like really well. And orcs, that'd probably be really good as well. So again, while I don't think these are like the most efficient unit ever, if you love Obliterators, or maybe like you don't have that big a collection, whatever the reason is, you can run them here and they'll do alright. Like they might actually get their points value, especially if you roll hot on the Focus Malice, like maybe you annihilate a vehicle, in your first shooting phase or whatever. Yes, you will start to get value there. So hopefully GW takes a look at them, takes them down a little bit further. I think they could drop pretty far, man. Now they can only be brought in pairs, because that's the thing. You used to be able to bring 4 of them, and very much I could understand the tax in that case, but because you can only bring 2, I hope GW takes them down to like 150, maybe even lower than that, 140, something like that. But again, I'm talking down on very much, but you will get like decent value with Pactbound Zealots. Don't be afraid to run these guys in your list. By the way, they look sick as hell, so like that alone is reason to bring them. Alright, next up, we got probably the best unit, like, in this detachment, like, by far. You got the Helbrute. Reason being, dude, when you use this guy's Dark Ascension, you get 5-up sustained and lethal. I don't even know, like, I'm terrible at math. I don't even know what, like, percentage that is, but it has to be, like, over 50% boost. Probably more than that, man. It gets pretty nuts right there. Combine them with Abaddon, oh my god. Reroll all hits, sustained and lethal 5-ups. Maybe got an undivided unit nearby. They're rerolling all their wounds while they're at it. Like, dude, can you guys imagine how much damage this guy does? He was like an auto-include in every single castle build you saw. He's going to continue to be an auto-include. Even if you don't bring Abaddon, even if you don't do castles, this guy very much is valid. Now, normally, I would probably run him like completely melee, because now he gets +2 attacks if he brings 2 melee weapons. Not in Word Bearers. Truthfully, like, normally he's buffing up the shooting units, or like the range units. So he's normally sitting pretty far back. He only has a 6-inch move on top of that, so it's kind of hard for him to like stay caught up with everybody. That said, another way you could do it is you do go with the melee weapons, and then you just have him sort of like protect your blob. So if somebody deep strikes in or flanks around or whatever, this guy can charge him and run him off. Get off my lawn. He also has a 2-up save that is incredibly good. T9, like that's pretty good right there. No invul, but with how 10th edition is, like a 2-up save is basically the same as an invul. It's basically a 5-up invul. You always have cover. Anything above like AP3 is incredibly rare. Very much, dude. Helbrute, auto-include all day, every day. They should be relatively cheap on eBay as well, because they've been around forever. The Dark Imperium model, which is my favorite version, by the way, that one looks so cool. Those have been around for, fuck, like a decade, something like that. So, very much Helbrute. If you haven't run him before, go out and get on eBay, buy one, and then start running this guy. He makes this list especially pop. Alright, next up, so Venomcrawler. I love Venomcrawler, and what's interesting about this guy, he makes a decent candidate for Tzeentch. Reason being, so he has 12 freaking attacks, strength 6, AP 1, 2 damage each, so he's great at clearing infantry and whatnot, but kind of struggles into vehicles. Well, when you get lethal 5-ups into anything, suddenly, dude, he can plink a decent amount of wounds, even off Imperial Knight. Like, you should average, like, 4 damage, something like that. You roll a little hot, maybe do 6 to even, like, 8 damage. Like, that's pretty awesome. I love his ability, too, Soul Eater. So if you finish off a unit in melee, you get +1 attacks to all your weapons. Suddenly, you get 7 attacks in melee, 14 attacks shooting. Maybe you're like a super awesome general and you do it twice. Now you're going up to what, 16 attacks shooting? Gets pretty nutso there. Now I will say Nurgle is the other valid choice. Nurgle, because then you just get the sustained hits. Then he's like ultra good at clearing out chaff and infantry in the sort. So sort of dealer's choice there. But I do love the fact that yeah, you can run him Tzeentch. So you got the option there. And I have experimented with that before. And yeah, dude, it's a pretty good option. Next up, we got Maulerfiend. So you would always run this guy Slaanesh. The advance and charge is just too big a deal on this guy. He has 10-inch move, the T10 vehicle profile, 12 wounds with a 5-up invul. Like, that's all nifty right there. Mauler Fist, obviously, are going to, like, murder the shit out of, like, vehicles and that sort of stuff. So, 6 attacks, strength 14, minus 2 AP, D6 +1 damage. Remember, you got sustained 5, so you'd get an average of, what, 7 attacks normally? I always run the Magma Cutters. Even though I bring him a Slaanesh, even though he's melee focused, I always go Magma Cutters. You get 2 of them, so you get 4 attacks, strength 9, AP 4, which is super ultra strong, D6 damage each. Don't forget, you can still do your Dark Pacts. Sure, it wouldn't be on a 5-up, but 6-up, like that definitely helps there. Now, Siegecrawler did get nerfed a little. You used to be able to reroll your advance and charges, which was beautiful on this guy. Now you just ignore any and all modifiers to your move, advance, and charge, which does have value. It doesn't come up that often, but when it does, dude, that could be crippling. I've had people, like, shoot my Possess with it. Like, yeah, nerf my Possess movement. Oh my god, especially when it affects your move and your advance and your charge. There's some that are like that. Like, oh, that's so bad. But Maulerfiend, dude, he got a price break, 130 points. This guy's super ultra valid. He works great into threat saturation. I've been running this guy for ages. Even like 9th edition, I run him all the time. You'd be surprised how good he is. The threat overload method is like really great. He looks scary as hell too, so people always get so distracted by him when really it's like, dude, you should probably be shooting my like scoring unit, but go on ahead, shoot my shoot my T10 model. Like that's fine with me. Yeah, Maulerfiend, I think he's very valid here. Next up, we got the main tanks. So both of these are on like equal playing field in my eyes. Vindicator probably better. Vindicator's like anti-everything. He has a 2-up save, T11. That's a pretty big deal there. So strength 10 weapons are going to struggle to wound him. Again, he's got that 2-up save. So like even if they have 3 AP or whatever, you probably have cover. You're still saving on like 4s. Anything with like AP 1 doesn't even want to bother shooting at this guy. He's got the Demolisher cannon, so blast. That's fantastic. And the orcs in the sort. 24-inch range, so a little short, but not bad at all. D6 plus 3 attacks, strength 14, minus 3 AP, D6 damage each. He literally is like anti-everything, especially with that blast. On top of that, you got the Havoc Launcher and the Combi Bolter, so definitely you can like clear out chaff while you're still shooting at like vehicles and the sort. He's only 175 points. Vindicator, I think he's practically an auto-include. It's either him or the Predator. Now, Predator is also an interesting choice because you could go Zinch with this guy as well. The play I've heard people do, I haven't really, I like did the math hammer, I forget all about it, like what the results were, but it's not bad. You bring heavy bolters and the Predator autocannon, and you run them Zinch. That way you're getting a decent amount of the 5-up lethal hits. Then he does become anti-everything in a sense, like pretty good at it too. Doesn't matter what you shoot. Now I will say the heavy bolters only being AP1 into like vehicles and the sort, that does, not the best thing ever. Into infantry, however, you do get +1 AP on top of that, so suddenly you get AP2 on both the autocannon and the heavy bolter, so for sure he'd be pretty good there. And that's right, the heavy bolter has sustained hits 1 built into it as well, so you get both lethal 5-ups and then sustained 6-ups. Like, yeah, dude, definitely like that. And in fact, I think, wouldn't you get a 5-up on both of those? I'm not sure. Somebody comment below. I forget on how that would work there. That said, I still mostly stick to Nurgle, and in that case, I would do the las cannons and the Predator autocannon. Getting those, again, the sustained hits 5-up, like, that's pretty money there, dude. The las cannons, maybe even if you just get, like, 3 hits or whatever, like, that's huge. Into infantry as well, Terminators, any of that sort of stuff, it does become anti-everything. The super wombo combo too is you bring a Terminator Sorcerer along, boom, now I get +2 AP into infantry of any kind. On top of that, he has the Havoc Launcher and the Combi Bolter. They also benefit from his rule. So dude, this guy is like one of the most like points efficient like shooting platforms out there. I'm surprised he's still only 130 points. Very much, I think you if he's been sitting on your shelf the last like decade or whatever, go on ahead, dust him off, bring him out, and yeah, watch the fireworks. Alright, next up, we got the big man himself, Mr. Forgefiend. So normally, I would say, like, yeah, Vindicator's better, he's cheaper, and they're pretty similar, whatever. No, in this list, this guy's pretty baller, dude. You, especially if you're only bringing one, you want to run him undivided. Reason being, you can give him devastating wounds. Now, yes, it has hazardous on it, and you have 3 different cannons, so you'd roll 3 hazardous tests, so, like, cross your fingers there, but regardless, it's worth it. He becomes literally anti-everything, especially infantry, into like a brick of like orcs, so a 20-man brick, he would get an average of 18 shots on average, -3 AP, 3 damage each, strength 10, so you're winning them on 2s, even though they probably have a feel no pain at 3 damage each, like, doesn't even matter. Like, a lot of people, truthfully, a lot of people don't even bother rolling it, like, unless they have like a 5-up, but regardless, yes, this guy is like super popping in this list specifically. Yeah, I'd very much include this guy. Now, I will say, if you're bringing multiples, a lot of times I still go Nurgle. The sustained hits is just so good on shooting platforms, because again, guys, you'd be surprised how many extra attacks you get in certain times, and when you roll a little hot, dude, it like makes up for it and then some. But undivided, definitely, I'd probably still bring at least one in every single list, because yeah, the dev wounds with reroll all those wounds, it's way too strong. Last up, so we got Nurglings. So Nurglings belong in pretty much every list ever. Doesn't matter what list it is. But again, they pop off here because a lot of times, a lot of word bearer lists are going to be like shooting focus. That's a really common build, especially Abaddon. You do the whole castle build or whatever. Well, Nurglings, they buy you like a turn or two, or they delay your opponent by a turn or two. Especially if you go first and you like forward deploy them, move blocking ain't no thing with these guys. What you do, by the way, you advance them. You're not charge them in. You especially don't want them to die on your turn in melee. Yeah, you advance them in, get them as close as you can to your opponent, and just block them in for their first turn. Certain games, dude, that just wins you the game right off the bat, especially if you have like 3 squads of these, and most definitely if you go first. So do be careful if you're fighting like word bearers, orcs especially, any of those sort of armies, like do be careful how you deploy them. A lot of times, like especially if you go second, like you're just giving them free movement, and picking these guys up, they do have 4 wounds each, but it's really not that hard to do. Not when they only save on a 6-up, and they're only T3, so do be careful, definitely need some practice there. With the new mission pack that's right around the corner, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they have like more actions in it, or they're like harder actions to do or whatever. Nurglings, definitely, if you have points left over, like very much include these as many lists as you can. You'll see in a moment with some of the lists I load, I'm pretty sure Nurglings are in at least a few of them, and there's a reason for that. So, what's funny, alright, so I have some notes off to the side or whatever. I have notes on honorable mentions. And what's hilarious in the honorable mentions, it just says literally every unit. For real, guys, Pactbound Zealots, they buff up any and everything you can think of. So if you want to run, I'm trying to think, what's a subpar unit? I don't know, Cultist or something like that. A Cursed Cultist would be great. They're not subpar, they're fantastic, but a Cursed Cultist get boosted. Lord Discordant, I know I included him already, but he gets boosted. You name it, man, like they do fine here. You're almost in a sense getting like a rebate on your points because of, yeah, the extra efficiency you get out of everything. So again, if you just want to run like a fun, badass looking, rule of cool sort of list, by all means, man, go on ahead and do it. Don't sweat it whatsoever. Alright, last up though, so I want to show you guys a few different lists. So like I mentioned in the very beginning, I think word bearers do offer like a variety of like styles you can go for. So the first one, this one's like very themey. If you guys didn't already know, with these videos, the first like 2 lists I load are normally like fluffy, and then typically the third and beyond are like more competitive. So this list, I love this list. You guys ever like write a list and just like fall in love with it? That's exactly how this one is. After I made it, it's like, damn, I really want to run that, like genuinely. So this, they're word bearers. Of course, they love demons. So I brought one of each battle line for the gods. So of course, pink horrors, plague bears, bloodletters, and then demonettes. Now, some of those genuinely are, like, pretty strong. Plague Bearers, they're fantastic. Means that you don't need cultists, like, sit on your home field. Don't have to worry about the indirect as much, because they're T5, 2 wounds each. And then Pink Horrors, these guys are amazing, dude. They got the split, they got the 4-up split. So if your opponent's not able to wipe them out in a single shooting phase, like, good luck, man. And a lot of times it makes it worse. If, like, the best thing they could ever do is knock out 9 of them, and then you roll all your dice, maybe you get lucky, you roll, like, 5 4-ups, and you get 10 of them back. Like, they're bigger. Like, what's going on here? It's worse than it was before. Very valid there. Now, I will say Bloodletters, they kind of struggle baseline. They really need, like, buffs from the Demon Codex. But, you still have fun with it. And you could tweak this list. You could bring a Rin Master, and that way they get +1 strength, AP, and damage when you do that. Oh yeah, then they really pop off. But baseline, they're not the best thing ever, but that said, they're not the worst either. They got what, AP 2 damage each, so they'll blend stuff pretty good in melee. And then Demonettes, they're really speedy. I would talk trash about them, but no, they're really speedy, man, so they'd be great for like objective play. They will mulch the hell out of like chaff and that sort of stuff, so they do have their uses. But yeah, you could, if you were like going for a fun themey list and you guys wanted to like adjust things, yes, you could probably drop the Bloodletters and drop the Demonettes. Beyond that, we got 2 MSU squads of Warp Talons. They belong pretty much everywhere. Ooh, that's right, I got 3 squads in fact. Now, I could see the argument for combining all 3, or not all 3, but combine 2 of them together so you got a brick of Warp Talons. At that point, like, yes, dude, with the advance and charge and all that sort of stuff, I would very much be liking that. Beyond that, gotta bring the Possessed. So I brought 3 Master Possessions. They're probably the most like Wordberry, next to Dark Apostle. They're one of the more like Wordberry models I could think of. You got 2 Venomcrawlers, and then you got a Forgefiend in the back. For the Possessed, so the MSU, I would run as Slanesh, and then the Brick, obviously, you'd run as Undivided. Again, this is your anti-everything, and generally how I do it is, first turn, I deploy them near the middle behind cover, and then they just, yeah, dude, they just tussle over the middle of the board, and basically, like, this is my house. Nobody comes near it. Now, do be mindful of, like, counter charges and stuff, so there is definitely strategy involved there, but regardless, anything that you get the charge on with your reroll all wounds, yeah, dude, they're pretty much dead. Like, you almost don't even need to roll it. And then Trader Guard, I thought they'd be on point for the theme, and also I had 70 points left over. You could trade them for, like, Bikers or Chaos Spawn if you're cool like that, that sort of stuff, but I think, 2 objective control, like, I think they're valid. Now, I only have a single Forgefiend, so for sure, I would run him Undivided as well. And in this list specifically, I would be tempted to run the Venomcrawlers as Tzeentch. That way you got more anti, like, tank, sorta, anti-everything in that sense. I freaking, genuinely, I love this list. I think it looks so cool. I would love to see it on the table. I'd love to see it, well, I love seeing it in TTS. I would very much run this, yeah, dude, I'd run this like any casual game, any day of the week. Now, that said, maybe you're lame and you don't like demons, whatever the reason is. So, what if you go pure word bearers? Go fluffy pure word bearers. So, obviously, anything demonic, anything mutated, they're very much gonna love. So, we brought 2 bricks of Accursed Cultist and gave the Dark Commune to it. I did make them Slanesh, so you get the advance and charge on top of the sustained hits 5. So these guys are going to be like super duper murdering stuff right there. Now, I could very much see the argument for undivided, because I'm not mistaken, they hit on 4s typically, so you would get extra, like, reliability there. That said, I like the Snesh. The advance of charge is just way too valuable. Now, they do have scouts, and they do have the berserk move, so maybe I'm, like, overthinking it there, because you would get a lot of movement for essentially free, but just something to bear in mind. I brought 2 Maulerfiends, gotta bring them Slanesh. Oh, that's right, I brought Slanesh Daemon Prince, so I gave him the Intoxicating Elixir. Probably deep strike him, but very much he'd go on foot. And actually, he has a 14-inch move, so maybe you wouldn't deep strike him. I brought a Chosen Bomb with a Dark Apostle. Gotta stay fluffy. What I think is interesting about these is I ran them Tzeentch, so they already have advance and charge like baseline, and you would think Tzeentch like doesn't mesh that well because yeah, they're not going to shoot that much. That said, they do have some shooting, and it will give you a few wounds there, so there's a little bit of value. But mainly it's because I gave this guy the Relic. And again, they already advanced in charge, so I don't need the Slanesh that much, and you still get Dark Packs, so you're still hitting on, like, or you're still exploding on 6s. It's not the worst thing on the planet. You could even bring somebody back from death if you really need to. I don't think Chosen are the best choice for that. We got 2 Obliterators. In this case, I ran them Nurgle. I could see Undivided, that's valid, and Tzeentch would also be valid, because again, you could bring one back for only a single CP, bring back an 85-point model. That does have value behind it. We brought a few squads of cultists. Wordbearers love using their little cultists, their little converts, and then of course you got Traitor Guard, like that's super on theme. And then last up, you got 2 squads of MSU Warp Talons. Yet again, I could very much see combining them together, but in this case, I kind of like the board control. Then again, you got a lot of board control, so obviously lots of changes you can make to it, but this would be like, yeah, I think this is a fine, like if you're going for a fluffy or themed list, very much I could see Wordbearers bringing this to the battlefield, so I like it, yeah, I like it a fair bit. I like the first one better, but it's a decent runner-up. Alright, next up though, so, you know, maybe you're not going for the fluff, maybe you're going to a tournament or something, you want to win, you know, whatever your reason is. Well, here's an example of an Abaddon castle. So this was extremely common, with a few small changes. So instead of Lords, I did bring Master Executions. You very much could swap those out for Lords. You'd have to shuffle the list a little bit, so maybe drop a Raptor, maybe drop a Nurgling or something so you can afford the Lords. And I could see it. In that case, you go Undivided. In this case, they're going Slanesh, just so again, I can get the advance in charge and exploding 5s. You got Mr. Abaddon. He's got a brick, or not a brick, but he's got a squad of Chosen with him. I did give a Rhino to the 2 squads of Legionaries. You got 2 Raptors. I love these guys, dude. For 85 points, they're just so efficient. Like, there's nothing wrong with them whatsoever at 85 points. You gotta think they got Meltas. I run them Nurgle, so they got exploding 5-up Meltas. Like, that's pretty fantastic. You got 2 freaking Vindicators, 2 freaking Predators, and a freaking Forgefiend, and a freaking Helbrute. You combine all that together, you got a lot of freaking damage, man. So basically how the list works is, yeah, you literally run it something like this. You just make sure they're all within 6 inches. You just slowly walk up the board and just annihilate your opponent. This will do outrageous amounts of damage, especially with the Helbrute. And actually, I had it backwards. You would hide the Helbrute behind line of sight, because he's normally like target number 1, next to Abaddon, of course. Abaddon, he's easy to hide behind like cover and that sort of stuff, so you don't really have to worry about that. He's infantry, he can move through walls, so that's not a big deal there. And then lastly, gotta have the Nurglings, man. Again, move blocks, secondaries, arguably they're more useful for like secondaries and that sort of stuff. This is an extremely shooty list, if you couldn't tell, so I would probably be tempted to like actually infiltrate them. That way I can sort of move block, even if I don't like forward deploy them. Maybe, you know, second turn, still block them from a couple moves there. Don't forget their -1 to hit bubble they put out, 6-inch bubble of -1 to hit in melee, so that would help all your other units when they do get tied up with stuff. This is, yeah, this is like your stereotypical Abaddon castle build. I'll be honest, you know, I kind of think it's boring, but you know what? I haven't ran in so long, like maybe I should give it another shot. Maybe it's not as boring anymore. I'm not so sure. It was just really annoying to see it, like literally you look up every tournament list and you're like, yeah, another Abaddon castle. But yeah, you will see this at tournaments. Like people, you probably already have if you've been playing for a while. But yes, for anybody who doesn't know about it, this is your stereotypical Abaddon castle. Now, what if you're a man of substance? What if you're a cool guy? What if you want to be more like Fat Archon? Well, here's an example of a list that I typically ran. So obviously, I've been running the index, you know, since it came out. So I have a decent amount of experience. I love freaking Possessed. So this is more of the style I would go. So I dump Abaddon, those 285 points, 290, whatever he is. I put those to use with a lot of other units. So we got a brick of Possessed. I got 2 MSU Possessed. They are Slanesh with the Master Possessions. The big reason I brought the MOP is because like the ritual or any of those missions where you like need characters, I think it's important I have them in there. They also let me snipe other characters, so there is like people get surprised about it all the time how quick they murder other characters. Most definitely any that don't have an invul, like they're dead, dude. You might as well just pick them up. I'm hitting them on twos. I'm winning them on twos. 3 damage each, -3 AP with dead wounds. Like yeah, you might as well just pick them up. I brought the classic. I brought the Terminator Sorcerer. He is by his lonesome, but that's okay. I gave him the Slanesh Relic, Intoxicating Elixir, so he's got the 2-up save, 4-up invul, blank damage once per game, and then he's got the 5-up Feel No Pain on top of that, so he definitely can, like, eat some damage. He needs, like, real dedicated firepower going into him. I brought 2 Slanesh Maulerfiends. I love these guys. Combined with the Possessed dude, again, it's threat overload. And then, talk about threat overload, we got 10 Warp Talons. Brick of Warp Talons, dude. You might be tempted to deploy them. Like, I'm not sure if I'd put them in Deep Strike or deploy them. I kind of think I would deploy them, because then Ultra threat overload. You have 4 separate giant units that you absolutely do not want getting into melee with you. Like, they will butcher you. And then you got the MSU. They'll be great at picking up, like, marine profiles and infantry and stuff. Not so much into bigger targets, but they'll still plink a few wounds. Got 3 units of Nurglings just for shenanigans and against secondaries, and then you still need the firepower, so I brought 2 Predators and then a Vindicator. It would be great to get like a Helbrute in here, so maybe you could drop something. Maybe. I wouldn't drop a Maulerfiend. I really don't think you want to in this style list, because again, you're going for threat overload, distraction, Carnifex, all that sort of stuff. I guess maybe you could drop the Raptors, but I love them for mission play as well. They're really speedy too. So people they have tough decisions to make, because you got a Brick of Possessed, like holding down the middle. You got 2 Maulerfiends right in their face, and then there's like, ooh, I could like near guaranteed knock these guys out. Ooh, but I really need to like deal with the big brick that's in my face. So I love it, man. They help with scoring really well. I've had like really good success. I've won RTTs. I've run a few RTTs with lists just like this. Very much you can get wins out of a list like this, so you don't have to stick with Abaddon. That's not the only way that that word bearers work. You got lots of different options. I love the Terminator Sorcerer. I think he belongs in almost every list. That +1 AP is nutso. He's really good in Renegade Raiders, by the way, because then you're getting +2 AP on pretty much anybody on objectives. But yeah, I want to give you guys a little insight into the crazy mind of Fat Archon. This is this is like the classic Fat Archon list. A shitload of possessed, a shitload of melee threats, and then a bit of shooting in the background. I love this style so much. It's sort of take all comers. That's sort of what it's going for. Regardless though, so I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, not only on the list, but just the army as a whole. Do you guys plan to keep running Pactbound Zealots? Like, did you have such good experience with them that like, you know, I can't leave them behind. They were too good to me. Or maybe if you're new, like, do you plan on giving them a shot? Do you have any list ideas, anything like that? By all means, leave a comment below. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, whether it's about these guys, CSM, 40k in general, I am always happy to help. If you guys look at the comments of my videos, I'm literally answering every single question. I love interacting with you guys. Regardless, though, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. I have a link to my Patreon in the description below if you guys would like to support me that way. But regardless, good luck out there, thanks for watching, and remember, death to the false emperor.